So hello everyone and welcome back to Discovery Bay, and specifically we are still working on Hacienda del Hacho, which is the main thrill. It's not really a thrill, the main attraction of my area, and we finally get on to adding some theming and buildings in this episode. We've been working on this for a few weeks now and have been doing, track work and some custom supports, some custom cross sites as well, but now we can finally get onto theming. So we are gonna start from where you would enter this area first, and you would enter this area here where we're building right now, which is next to the McDonald's, and there is a McDonald's in this park, so I just thought I'd like to mention that. And we will be doing a bit of backstage area work as well, which you can see. And the backstage area is actually right behind this little arch that I'm making, but this arch won't be staying because I thought with it being an access path to a backstage area, it was a little bit too small, and if vehicles wanted to be coming through here, I didn't really think that was very convenient. But I did blueprint this arch, so I can use it again at some other area at some other point in this area. But you'll see me doing more or less the same process to make this arch a second time, but I just made it a little bit wider. But yeah, this is an arch inside a wall, and we are making this wall using a combination of different pieces. Some of them are TMTK textures that My Curious Mind made, who is another person who is working on Discovery Bay in this series, and you can see that now I am doing the other arch, and you can see that I placed those bricks quite far apart so that I could rotate them to get that smooth curve shape to put on top. But I was slightly cut off by that when I was trying to talk about the wall. So there are those textures, of course, which are very thin, but they just act as a facade, and they look quite nice and they look unique. So it's something different in this game that you won't normally see. We do use some grid pieces on top, and that's because they are probably the best tile pieces you can get, because they're made specifically by Frontier. Normally there's not really that many TMTK items which will replace the tiles, so they've got the 3D texture as well, so I use grid pieces there. But then for the ridge across the top, I had to use a different piece, because if I wanted to make this a scenery group, you can only have one building. So if I wanted to have that ridge tile, it had to be a non-grid item, if you know what I mean. And yeah, we're just putting a gate in here. Again, this is for realism, and I've put some bamboo pots next to it just to fill in a little gap, because the gate wasn't quite big enough to fill the whole gap for the arch. And now we will be putting some roses on here, and this is just to slightly hide away the backstage area, but without making it just too like concrete. So I didn't want to just board it all up, because it would kind of ruin the experience of the area. So I thought putting some flowers on there would be it would be quite fitting of this Spanish area. And now moving on to this other building here, and you can see that one thing I have been doing is replacing the grid piece walls that I placed at the start, and I am replacing them with these textures. I don't if you remember those the orange walls that are grid pieces, they were placed at the start just so I can mark out where buildings were going to be. And now I've decided that I'm going to theme this building, so I'm getting rid of the grid pieces. But it does actually really help me a lot as a guide to see where each building is going to go, and that process worked very well for this building. And this building is a little bit plain, but it's not supposed to be super grand, because this is actually going to be the maintenance shed, and you can see that as there is a truck on a car on the track inside that shed. And I don't know how there's a car on that track, because normally that's just not really possible in this game. But some other people, or maybe one person, someone else in the team did that, and I don't know how. Don't ask me how it's there, but yeah, there's a car on the track, and I mean, me saying that, for a non-Planet Coaster player, that, you know, the car on the track doesn't sound anything special. But it's normally, you know, yeah, it's a bit weird. Anyway, I apologise for that waffle there. I don't really know what I was trying to say. Well, I do, but I just couldn't bring it into words. We are now working on the roof, and you can see that I did some work on the framework underneath the tiles, and I may have gone into a little bit too much detail on the interior of this building, because the fact that the door before the track, the door that the car would be pushed through when it was going into the shed, because that was open, I did want to make this look realistic. Maybe not, like, there's not too much detail in here, but I didn't want it to be unrealistic and have everything clipping, and that is a trend that you'll see throughout this video. When I build the interior for this building, I will be doing some things to make it look like it's, you know, possible to exist in real life, because sometimes with different other elements glitching through the walls, which you can normally do in this game if it's not going to be visible, but because it is visible, I did have to do some things to get around that, and you'll probably understand what I'm talking about a bit later on in the video, where we actually do stop things from appearing to clip through. But yeah, we're working on this little patio area, I guess. This is, you know, right next to the final brake run, and I wanted to have a flat area fairly close to the track, because sometimes having catwalks everywhere is a bit of a pain. So I thought that if it was, you know, if the track was close enough to a ground level, then there would be no need for a catwalk, because the park workers can literally just stand right next to the track and do whatever they have to do for it. But this here is a transfer track, and we will be using some beam pieces right now to connect the track to this and put some wheels on so it looks like it can slide across. So yeah, that's what we're doing there. It's quite a simple transfer track. I tried to look at reference images from real Gerstlauer bobsleds to see what the transfer tracks look like, but some of them were quite, you know, it's quite difficult to see all of the small details. So you know, you can see I just made it look like a wheel, and it is in, you know, it's in its own kind of rail, so it looks like it could possibly slide across. But if there's some kind of mechanic out there who works with rides in real life, and you know that this doesn't look too accurate, please don't criticize me, because I didn't really think it needed to look, you know, perfect to that kind of perspective. But yeah, we're working on some custom supports, and these don't really look like much, but after looking at some reference images, these are the kind of supports that are used to support bobsled track when it's, you know, at parts where the ride is literally just moving along straight track at a slow speed. Of course, you're not going to see those kind of supports around the layout itself, because there's G-forces, but on here where there's very little G-force, it's just going to be, I guess, 1G, the force of gravity pulling on the train. There's no need to have all these high stress supports. So there are, you know, that's what it is. It's literally what I've just built there with beam pieces, and there was a spare bit of track opposite, well, opposite where the train would come out of the transfer shed, the maintenance shed, and it looks like it's got legs. It does look a bit strange, but that is what some track near the end of G'sengte Sau's layout at Tripsdrill, that's what it looks like. It literally looks like it's on legs, and it could just walk away at any second, because, you know, the foundations are very small, the footers are tiny, so it does look a bit odd. Apologies if you've not been able to see that, because this time lapse is sped up quite a bit. If you want to know, it's at 13.5 times speed, and the reason why it's so specific is because I do my simple editing in Shotcut on my computer to speed things up. So I do 9 times speed on there, and the reason why I do 9 times speed is because for some reason it exports quicker at 9 times speed than 10 times speed, and then on iMovie I speed it up by 1.5 times, because that seems like it's the best kind of compromise to show enough work without it being too fast to be difficult to follow, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'm still editing after iMovie. I am still editing on iMovie after all these months, well, I guess I wouldn't say years, because the channel's only really been going on for 1 year and a bit. But yeah, I'm still editing on an iMovie. I don't see any reason not to, because it does everything I need. And yeah, we are working on a near miss element here, which is right next to the final helix of the ride, just before it turns and goes up into the final brakes. And originally the track was a lot closer to the building. You may have noticed at the start that I made it so that the wall was a little bit closer in, so that it wasn't too much of an interruption to the track. You can see here one of the reasons why I did the wooden supports underneath the roof is so that I could have it coming out like this, and it looks like the ride's crashed through a part of the roof and some of the tiles have come off, and you can just see the framework underneath the tiles that still stands. And you can see here that in order to give this effect, I'm trying to have some tiles, like the plaster behind the brick is still there a bit more. It's hard to explain this, and honestly it doesn't look perfect. Some of the way the brick changes, like especially on the side that faces the brake run, the mid-course brake run, I mean, that it doesn't look perfect. It looks a bit like steps, but maybe not the most natural. But I couldn't really do much to get that. Like, I tried my best, and yeah, I hope it looks alright, and I think it will look alright when there's supports built around it, because there'll be less of an emphasis on the one thing that's there instead of when there's more things around it. Sorry if that doesn't make sense, but I'm trying my hardest. And yeah, you just saw there that I placed some tile pieces, and those were the only small tile pieces that there are in this game. They are designed for grid piece building when you want to put some kind of trim around the corner, and because there's because they're so small, it kind of fits to just have it as if those are pieces that have cracked off and fallen off the tile roof and landed in there. And here we are just, I did mention this at the start of the video, we're just covering up some bits there where they've clipped through the wall, just so it looks realistic from the interior of the building. And now back to this patio. We are building this path going around the side of the maintenance shed, and we're just doing some simple buildings here to make it look like there's some steps. And I used a wooden piece at a specific angle to guide me down, so that the steps went down at regular intervals, so they didn't look too irregular, I guess. And yeah, these are quite simple to do, but the fact that I've put the temple block in front of it makes it look quite effective. I feel like making stairs in this game, custom stairs, like it seems like something that could be complicated to do, but when you actually think about it, it's really simple. Because I know that there's many people who play this game that just use the custom paths as stairs, but if you want to, I mean the in-game paths as stairs, but if you want to make custom paths, it's not very hard at all. So I guess you could just try it like I've done here. And we're now making a little curb go around this area. So this is of course the backstage area directly behind McDonald's, and I'm going to be making this look like a little nature garden, I guess. So if you're on your break from McDonald's, you can just come and have a smoke in this little garden. And yeah, because this is somewhat visible from the past because of how you can see through the gate, I thought I would make this look, somewhat realistic and somewhat, well, nice, I guess. You can just see there I'm painting it now. I'm putting in some planters, and I'm going to put some trees in this area that look native to Portugal, which is actually where the park is set, and also native to Spain, which is where the area is themed to. But Portugal and Spain obviously right next to each other on the Iberian Peninsula, so it's not really gonna have much different types of trees, I guess. So yeah, Portugal and Spain, it's the same thing, so whatever's natural to Portugal will fit the themed area, I guess, in terms of shrubbery. So now we're making a trim to go around the side of this wall. You know, this is quite simple stuff, but it did actually take me quite a while to think of what piece to use, and then I settled on making it using these temple trims. But I noticed that they kind of poked out a bit through the end of the wall, and I decided to just use that to my advantage. So right now you'll see me there rotating it around and making it look like we did that on purpose, the way that the pieces stick out at the end. So we've just, you know, given it a bit more depth, which is not what I originally intended, but I think, you know, it just looked right, so I decided to add this extra bit of depth to the pattern going around this wall. So we're just, yeah, completing that off, and this of course is going to be visible from the POV from the brake run, so I thought that would be important to make look decent, I guess. Now we're working on a window, and the building was looking pretty bland, so making some windows was definitely something that I needed. And there are some good in-game sandstone windows, but unfortunately you can't really see through them, and I didn't like how that was. Like, it didn't seem very realistic, and if, you know, if I wanted to make the interior look right, I needed to have it look right on from both sides. So I decided to make my own out of beam pieces, and I know it's not as detailed, but I think it's fine because you're not going to be that close to it anyway. But that is the end of this video. I hope you have enjoyed watching, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Goodbye.
Buckle up, it's a drill ride.